Hi, everybody. David Noor back with you for another episode of our Intelligent Growth Live with my business partner, Jen Cords. Hello, Jen.
Good morning, Nor.
Nice to see you. And for our audience, this is a continuation of a mini series we've created focused on the strategic value of RevOps. If you were able to join us in a previous episode, we talked about it. We introduced the mini series and we really focused on metrics. So within this idea of revenue operations, which should be the seamless integration of processes, capabilities, and tech stack of your marketing, sales, customer success, and really a holistic view of how these functions should work together with a connective tissue. Revenue operations is critical to any SaaS or recurring revenue business model. And we enable intelligent and profitable growth, and focusing on RevOps is a big part of our work. And Jen leads that practice on our team's behalf. In the mini series, we really wanted to elevate Rev. There's a lot of, if you search revenue operations or RevOps, you'll come up with a plethora of references. Regrettably, a lot of them talk about the tactical. Here's this tool, or here's that tip or trick or technique, or they're very academic. They're kind of 50,000 foot view or the 2 foot view. Would really want to elevate the series and really bring the conversation to senior leaders and really executives and investors and board members and executive peers on really the strategic value of RevOps in your organization remaining relevant. So the mini series, 3 parts. We started with metrics in the last session. This episode is very much focused on dashboards. We continue to see a lot of dashboards done poorly. A lot of dashboards are not really accurate. A lot of dashboards are manual in many ways. They don't point to a single source of truth. So we thought a focus on dashboards would go a long way. And we're going to get a lot more detail shortly. And then we're going to finish the series focused on spend and ROI. And if your CFO is asking you, here's what we're spending on all this, how can we justify it? We want to give you some real actionable, real, hopefully insightful responses to that conversation. So, Jen, I'd love to start by getting your, and I know you've got some great examples to show our audience. And for those that might be listening, would encourage you to check out the live stream because we're going to show some examples of dashboards in this session. But Jen, give us your overview of how do you feel about dashboards? What do you and your team, when you go in and do an X-ray, a RevOps X-ray or RevOps assessment, what are you guys seeing when you kind of see or hear dashboards? Let's start with your take on it.
Sure. So the way we look at dashboards is that should be the central place that everybody goes to for their information. And there really should be a single source of truth for that. And everyone should be operating off of the same set of numbers, maybe with a filter on top of it for their specific function. So when we do an X-ray, we try and see how is the team operating today? Do they have that single source of truth? And if they don't, what are they using to create that? Is it manual? Is it automated in any way, shape, or form? And where are those things housed? So we really focus on that to create a baseline for the dashboards and then build from there.
Beautiful. So for our audience, again, this episode focus on dashboards. Jen, let's go to the next one where we talk a lot about again, enabling intelligent and profitable growth. We believe in the subscription economy. This approach is no longer a luxury. It is absolutely a necessity. And we believe that the path to get there, whatever stage you're in, we work with a lot of clients that are in the expansion mode. We work with some clients that are in the integration. They've acquired another entity and they're integrating couple of different environments or business models. And we work with a lot of clients that are in the transformation mode. So they realize that to remain relevant, they have to transform the way to go to market, the way they engage prospective buyers, any of those touchstone paths to value creation in the subscription economy requires a 360-degree view of the customer relationships. So Jen, in the next one, talk a little about our next slide. Let's talk a little about our customer lifecycle journey.
Sure. So this is some of the thought leadership that you and I have been working on, and the research that we've done with our global clients, and several interviews, like several dozen interviews with senior executives about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And this infinity loop is really what everyone should strive to achieve, because you need to be strong in all of these areas. And this infinity loop encompasses the entire journey that someone goes through, a prospect or a customer goes through as they interact with your company. And so you start down on the bottom left, and that's mainly marketing, the left side, sales and marketing. And then as you cross over, then it becomes sales and customer success. And then we reintroduce marketing there. But this journey that people go on, you can think of it as a relay race, and each handoff needs to be seamless. And there really are conversion metrics that you can track at each one of these points.
And we found this to be critical in both a mindset, so a leadership team mindset of this is fundamentally the business we're in, but also really candid conversation starter on, we're right now doing a global research study on what we call strengths and struggles. So if we ask a CRO in a company, what do you believe are the top 3 areas where your team, your organization really thrives? And then, flip the coin and ask, where are the top 3 areas where you believe as an organization you struggle? It's just not clicking, or we're not our best. And then here's probably the most compelling question that we ask in the survey. If we were to ask a set of independent constituents, think of your peers, your leadership peers, think of potentially your go-to-market channel partners, distributors, or certainly your customers. Would they, what's your confidence level that they would give us the same answer? And what we're after is alignment, consistency, perception. As Jen mentioned, the efficiency with which each of these phases are handed off to the next team, and the seamlessness with which the group works in taking, really guiding customers through the way they buy, and how to align the needs of the buyer with the wants of the seller. So this is a big part of our thought leadership. This is a big part of the conversations we have with senior executives and venture capital and private equity partners and board members of how effectively, how efficiently is your revenue engine able to execute around this infinity loop. So let's go to the next one. From this, we've come up with the amplified time to impact process. And this is a lot of how we do what we do. Jen, give us an overview.
Yeah, so this is really the process that me and my team go through when we work with our clients. And everything always starts with the baseline assessment, because we need to set the foundation and understand what we're working with, the capabilities of the team, and what that tech stack actually is comprised of. And then from there, we go just logically through the process of defining what the buyer, like who is the buyer, then like what is the journey we want to take them on, how are we tracking all of those things, and then how is the company actually handling the onboard and launch once the person actually buys, and then how are we demonstrating our impact, all the way down to how are we creating evangelists for our solution. And then what is the plan to help them improve and optimize what they're doing? And then on top of that, we always want to make or have deeper value, go deeper within the company. So how are we helping other groups within that company, and how are we deepening that relationship? And then how are we expanding that potentially globally? So this is just the process that we go through, and my team can go in at any point and kind of be SEAL Team 6 and work on that one function, or we can start at number 1 and work all the way through 10.
And the beautiful thing I've seen, whether your team does the X-ray, and for our audience, you don't get caught up in the terminology. The X-ray is a week-long sysadmin level overview, no cost, no obligation. We come back with the 5 most critical anchors that are holding you back, the impediments to you getting the most out of your RevOps environment. The baseline assessment, deeper, 30 to 45 days. It really is a deeper look at your processes, your capabilities, and your tech stack. And as Jen mentioned, Point Solutions is come in and help us with just the user journey. or come in and really help us once we kind of sell? How do we ensure a seamless transition to customer success? Or it's a deep dive focus on today's topic, which is dashboards, our leadership dashboards, our kind of the board dashboards. Everybody, I'm sure this doesn't happen in your organization, but everybody is bringing in their own set of data because there's either not a single source, or it's not believable, or the integrity or hygiene isn't there in the data that we present, or we have to manually create. We worked with one client, I forget the exact number of rows, but imagine hundreds of rows and columns trying to gather data manually every month and present that dashboard to the board manually because there wasn't a single source of truth. Respectfully, if your team is keeping information in Excel spreadsheets on their desktops and in files, physical files, digital files, independent of a widely shared common system, you have no chance of presenting a credible, consistent dashboard. That's a big part of what we're going to talk about today.
Well, and then on top of that, if your team's storing that information in a spreadsheet and whatnot, the rest of the organization can't benefit from anything that they've learned or gleaned from that information. So putting it into a Salesforce, for example, really does help the organization understand what is working, what is not working, and have some of that data to pull the insights from.
That's exactly right. So let's go on to the next one, which I think is really the focus on dashboards. Now you talk about there's three kind of types. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. So when you're creating dashboards, you not only need to create the single source of truth, but you also need to create the dashboards that is going to give the most complete picture. And that comes from connecting your platforms to then also connecting the functions within. So not only the technologies, but the people themselves and how their roles intersect. And then provide that information in a way that can be ingested, but wherever somebody may be. They may be on their phone, like they may be a sales rep out in the field or a field service person. They need to have that information at their fingertips. So having those reports available in a mobile as well as a desktop version is really important.
And you and I have seen, and we try to really think about the consumer of that information, right? Who needs to kind of consume it for their own, hopefully data-driven decision-making. And you talk about executives, you talk about management, you talk about kind of frontline contributor. I intellectually understand the difference, but share with the audience, what is the difference? What do you share with an executive? What do executives need to consume? That then does it kind of cascade down from there, or what are the unique nuances of each?
Definitely, there are unique nuances to each. And at each one of those levels, so the executive and board, the management level, and the IC, the individual contributor, they all need to make different decisions based on that same set of data. So at the board level, they're trying to set the direction of the company. At the management level, they're trying to help coach the individual contributors on what they need to do to make those numbers. And so they need just a little bit more granularity on how those numbers came to be. And then the individual contributor, they're really focused on the tactical. How many meetings have I set? How many calls have I made? How many people have opened or responded to this email? Downloads of assets, things like that. So they're focused on the really, really granular. And an executive may want that level of detail, but they shouldn't need it every single day. I'm trying to dig into this one problem to solve this one thing. Let me get that granular. But really their board and executive level dashboards need to stay very macro. And so each one, because they make different decisions, they need the data just displayed in a way that makes sense for what they're trying to achieve.
And are you of the belief that I should be able to drill down? So at the executive level, maybe I see the macro level information, but can I drill down and see what my East and West Coast managers see, and then drill down even further to see what that individual contributor cares most about?
Yes, absolutely. Drilling down on the one set of data is really important to allow them to have the depth of the answers that they may be seeking without having to go to multiple places. And it also helps reinforce the validity of that data. If all of it's in one place and everyone's working off of the same set of numbers, same dashboard, basically the same view, it helps reinforce that these are the only numbers that exist. If it doesn't exist in whatever system we're pulling this from, then it doesn't exist.
Got it.
So yeah, it's really important to have that ability.
And we've also talked about don't confuse output with outcome and then impact. So for our audience, we're big believers of, the output is an individual contribution. It matters. So me generating a report, that's output. Don't confuse output with outcome and impact. The report itself is far less valuable than the insights that I can glean from the dashboard. That's outcome. And yet we don't want to stop there. The real impact in the business, the real value creation opportunity is the decision, the data-driven decisions we choose to make and the impact on the business from the dashboard that came from the report. So again, all three are critical, and you need to really see it as a cumulative approach of we want compelling, accurate, timely, believable, credible output that then really contributes to our ability to make compelling decisions. That's the outcome from that effort that ultimately impacts the business. And those are really critical to delineate and yet see as a comprehensive view of why we're doing this.
And one of the things I'd say also is the value of RevOps, and coming back to the objective of our mini series, the strategic value of RevOps is they have that purview and that oversight of all the systems and the three functions, marketing, sales, customer success, to help guide and provide the insights that the data is talking about. They are not just, I need this report generated. They generate the report, so they generate the output, but then they also can help the executive or the management or even the IC ingest that data and understand what it is telling them. So that's, yes, they create the dashboards, but they also are the ones that can help you understand what it is that dashboard is telling you.
I love it because it reiterates something you and I talk to a lot of clients about, which is the what I call the what approach, right? Mm-hmm. What, so what, now what? What am I looking at? So what? Why does it matter? How is it relevant to me? Now what? What can I do with it? How can I go implement or act on or pull a lever? I mean, this is exactly what a P&L is, where can we pull a lever that's going to help us strategically impact the progression, the growth journey, the market impact of the business. So what I love is you have some examples of dashboards you and your team have seen, have created, have analyzed, and want to get to that next. But really you want to talk about kind of the real outcomes of dashboards and why they're critical.
Yeah, so this goes to your point about the what, so what, now what. So dashboards and having them at the three different levels really help the company monitor what matters in real time. And so you can make adjustments in real time. All businesses today have to be relatively agile. And you can't go into a corner and plan a thing and launch it. You really need to have an iterative approach to what you're doing and how you're doing it. And marketing and sales really have the ability to make changes on the fly because sales is having those real-time conversations. And if something's not resonating, marketing can make adjustments and relaunch the messaging. Or if something's really sticking, they can double down on it quickly because then that'll have impact on the business more speedily than if they wait, like having a quarterly business review or something like that. So decision making really comes down to having accurate data and having these dashboards in real time.
I often talk about dashboards as very similar, old school. The newspaper from 3 days ago. You might as well wrap fish in it because again, if I can't act on that data quickly, so that the near real time makes it actionable, makes it, I have my finger on the pulse of the business. This is fresh data. and I can act on it versus, and lots changed since that came out even on Monday. So your ability to gather as near real time as possible is critical to that decision making is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes. And then from that, so being able to make decisions in near real time, having dashboards and that single source of truth also allows everyone to hold each other accountable to what the results are. You've set the objective of we're trying to get to X dollar amount of revenue, and here are the things we're tracking to get there. Everyone working from the same set of numbers will then be able to see how close are we, what other things do we need to do, and it allows the conversation to happen both at the executive management and individual contributor level of what can I do to help get us to that point. And it allows them to connect the dots, if you will, to each person's contribution to getting us to that end result.
This also should create some real candid conversations in the organization where peers are holding each other accountable, whether it's the executive leadership level or kind of the mid-tier management or even those individual contributors. Instead of authoritative top down, where the hell is your numbers to get to the results, it's I can see it, everybody else can see it. I need to raise the bar on what I'm doing, how I'm doing it.
It's funny you say that. At an organization that we did some work on in the past, their BDR team loved the dashboard that we put together because they gamified it within themselves. It wasn't an official anything, but nobody wanted to be at the bottom of the leaderboard. And so they would work hard, and they were all working very hard, but they'd always try and one up each other, or two reps that were always number 1 and 2 in their closed won pipeline numbers or number of meetings booked. They would like make it a game to see how many calls they could make over the other person. And so it's a way to also make work fun, and having those candid conversations really help do that.
And you and I talk a lot about leaders making the time to look at the data, to analyze the data, and then make course correction from there. So talk about the analysis.
The analysis is really the important part of these dashboards, having that feedback loop to your individual contributor team or between functions. So sales is hearing or seeing something, marketing needs to know about it, and same with customer success. So if there's something happening, the other functions within the business really need to be aware of it, and having this one set of data and having those conversations helps elevate the entire business and focus on the things that really matter. So having planned time to actually analyze the data on a weekly executive call, bring up the dashboard, let's talk about this, or in your functional group calls, like intentionally look at the data and understand what it's telling you so you can help course correct the business before you get too far off.
Got it. So now we're going to jump into some of the examples.
Yeah. So one of the most common systems that we see in our work and our clients, most companies have standardized on a CRM. The most prolific one is Salesforce. And so this is an example of a dashboard within Salesforce. And what I love about the flexibility of Salesforce dashboards is you can create the filters that we talked about and just layer them on top. So they each have a dedicated URL, but you can give the people the view that they need easily. And as you build these dashboards, you can just add components. As you need to track other things, you can add things easily to this view without having to completely recreate the dashboard. So the flexibility within Salesforce is something that I really love.
So for our audience who may not be seeing and just are listening to this episode, what are we looking at, and what's really interesting to you here?
So here, what's really interesting to me is how the data is organized. They start with some just basic metrics at the top, and those should be the ones that the company is most focused on. So in this example, they're looking at total active users. And then from that, where does that information go? And so they start at the macro level. And then as you move down the levels on this report, you're getting more granular. And that's really important because it helps somebody as they're scrolling down this page to their brain logically, okay, we started at the top. That was the big picture. And now we're getting more granular. We're getting down into the nitty gritty, and they can stop at any point or dig deeper into any one of these. Like you can click on any one of these tiles and get just that one dedicated report. So it allows both that macro and micro view.
Got it. So are there some shortcomings in this particular example that you're looking at? Are you sharing?
There are some. Mainly it's the way in which the data can be displayed. Salesforce is great about allowing you to merge reports together, but it limits the number of reports that you can put together. And so that then requires you to have multiple tiles for the same metric that you may be trying to track. The other limitation that I have found with Salesforce is it limits the amount of information you can bring in from other systems, just like via an API call. And so if your data that you're wanting to look at doesn't exist natively within Salesforce, you may not be able to display it on a dashboard. So it limits the single source of truth capability that we were talking about previously.
All right, so let's go to the next one.
So this one is one that's mainly focused on revenue. And this example really is, again, organized in a way that starts at a macro view, the numbers that they most care about. This one's looking at assets and revenue and then what that income is. And then it drops down to location, and then it gets more granular into the P&L. What I like about this is the way it's organized. What I don't like about this is that it's also not connecting the dots between the activities that then generated some of this revenue and the revenue itself. So this is strictly looking at your numbers, your budget from a finance perspective.
And again, it seems to be myopic. And what I'm hearing from you is you want that holistic view. We often talk about the offensive coordinator that's sitting up in the booth that can see the entire football field. And it's not just looking at the quarterback's lens or maybe the coach's lens. It really is the holistic view from which you can drill down on different parts of the organization.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And the next one.
So this one is another great example of a dashboard with the various activities within it. This one's based out of HubSpot. So this one's going to be more marketing focused. And it too starts at a high level, and then it gets granular as you move down, which is a common way of laying out dashboards. What I don't love about this also is that it doesn't necessarily marry the marketing activities with the sales activities. HubSpot does have that capability. And so creating a dashboard with that in mind is going to be important to make sure that your marketing and sales stay in lockstep.
And so what's really fascinating about this one is, I love that you're getting form submissions from the original source. So I'm assuming, these forms came from potentially the website or a campaign. Then you've got some sort of an automation blueprint submissions. You've got number of views, and it seems very, very focused on the marketing activity, the marketing motions. Would it be fair to say that a sales professional, certainly individual contributor, is not going to care as much about these details as those in the marketing function? But if I'm a manager, I certainly want to know the marketing activities that are going on in my region or territory and how we're creating air cover. Is that fair?
That would be fair to say, yes. And definitely ensuring that both functions know what they're being measured upon is going to be important. And the meetings, so like the QBRs, for example, that I brought up previously, marketing should be in those meetings. If marketing is supporting sales in those territories and in those regions, then the marketing should be there to hear what sales is talking about and make course corrections, but then also provide insights from the marketing side that sales may not be aware of.
And my biggest request of different functions, particularly in that QBR environment, not everybody speaks marketing.
Yes.
So if you start to get into, is that an MQL or is that an SQL? Is that a PQL? Is that a DQL? You're gonna lose me at hello. So if you speak kind of business, we did these campaigns, we generated these kind of what we believe to be qualified opportunities. And I love that as they're sitting in QBRs, both give what we did, some context of why and how we did it, but also be open to listening and really hearing the input from the sales team. That's at the edge of where your organization delivers value in the marketplace. I think is invaluable for the marketing team to kind of hear those insights and really use that to course correct, recalibrate, and really come to the next one with, we heard you, here's what we did and how we did it, and here's the different results, hopefully better results, that we're able to kind of bring to the field sales organization.
And
so
something else that I'd layer on top of that is, we're talking about marketing and sales being in lockstep. Also ensuring that your customer success people are part of those QBRs as well, because they're going to complete your picture. And they're going to bring the insights of, this really resonated with the customers, or this onboarding went really well, or the handoff between sales and marketing and how this whole contract went down was really productive. And the other sellers can then learn from that. And then marketing's hearing the things that the customers are keying in on, and they can help fine tune the messaging. So completing that picture is really, really important.
I have two follow-up questions of you. Why do you believe, I'm painting with a very broad brush, but why do you believe in so many organizations, customer success is a red-headed stepchild?
I think most organizations see customer success as a given. We have customers, we're going to take care of the customers. That experience doesn't need to be curated or managed or anything. It's just, we're going to take care of the customer. That's part of our DNA. What they're failing to recognize is that you have to be intentional with everything you're doing. You're being intentional with your marketing. You're being intentional with your sales process and how you interact with the customers and do the contracts there. You really need to be intentional with how you're onboarding somebody and how you're engaging with that customer to provide the value that they're looking for, and not just be viewed as a vendor.
Beautiful. And number two, what's the role of, you said sales obviously is going to be in that QBR. Marketing should be there to provide context, customer success to kind of complete the loop and hear what's happening. What's the RevOps role in that QBR?
The RevOps role is to help provide that overview and that insight across the entire journey. So marketing has their piece and how they impact that piece. Sales has their piece. Customer success has theirs. RevOps really becomes that connective tissue between all of them to help explain the story and help also identify places where the baton may be getting dropped. So we talked about in our infinity loop that each one of those handoffs needs to be smooth, and RevOps would then have the level of visibility to connect those dots of, okay, well, marketing, sales, that's great. Sales to customer success, here's places we can improve and here's how. And so they can help explain and maybe elevate what's happening, not just the why it's happening.
Live for our audience, I'm going to do something you hate, which is put you on the spot. Have you participated in a QBR recently?
Recently, no. Historically, yes.
And what has been the biggest surprise that you've brought to the QBR conversation from your RevOps lens?
The biggest surprise that most people have is the volume and quality that marketing actually generates and that sales doesn't accept. So when there's loose criteria between those two, there's misalignment. And so sales doesn't think marketing's doing anything, and marketing doesn't think sales is accepting anything. So probably the biggest alignment point that I've helped them realize is that both teams are working exceedingly hard, and there's value in having better connectivity between those two departments. And taking some of those roadblocks down is probably one of the biggest realizations that are there. The other part of that is also helping them see the value of customer success being in that room and completing that picture, and then the intentionality in which they need to leverage customer success in the sales cycle, in the marketing, both pre and post sale. And so making sure that those teams are actually aligned in an effective way are probably some of the biggest realizations that RevOps has given in a QBR.
Yeah. So again, similar to you, inside a company, it's been several years, but as an advisor, as outsider, we sit on QBRs on a regular basis, and it's fascinating to see that exchange. So if marketing doesn't provide the context, if marketing doesn't really tightly define, tightly scope, here's what an ideal, and you've heard, people talk about customer profile. We talk about ideal relationship profile. Looks like the perception becomes, what is marketing doing, and it quickly gets into us and them versus a we challenge or a we opportunity. So it's fascinating to see that exchange, the misalignment, the missed opportunities. The other one you and I presented, which was just the expression on the cringeworthy for our audience, expression on the CEO's face when we present that 600 quality leads from a campaign, through their website, went to Never Never Land, and it was sitting there and no one had visibility to it. So now sales is thinking, what the hell is marketing doing? Marketing's thinking that campaign was a complete failure. And what nobody realizes is that form wasn't going anywhere. So this is an example of the insights, the strategic insights RevOps can bring to your next QBR, of the effectiveness, the efficiency, the results, and because the systems were, well integrated together.
Yes. And I'd add to that, if your company is a PLG or a product-led growth type company and you have a freemium type model, that's one of the other examples that we've helped uncover, that the company wasn't paying attention to who their members were within their product, that were leveraging the free solution. There was really rich nuggets in there. And so RevOps, by connecting the dots and connecting those pieces in the systems and creating that single source of truth, was able to uncover that. And then sales could go and have those valuable conversations with Fortune 150 Fortune 50 companies of why are you using the free solution, or how can we help you find better value? Like, are you looking for something else? How can we help you? And really identifying the people who already love your solution and deepening that relationship. Whereas instead of just trying to generate net new names. So RevOps really helps uncover some of those really rich nuggets so you can work smarter, not harder.
I think we have another example of a sample dashboard.
Ooh, we do. Well, we did. Hold, please. Down. There we go.
So talk a little about this one. What are we looking at? What do you like? What's missing?
So this dashboard is more focused on sales. However, what I really like about this dashboard is that it does pull in some of the marketing activities related to the sales behaviors. And so what we're looking at, again, we're starting at a very macro view of assigned accounts, how many are actually then actively being touched and worked on, and then how many have actually been engaged. So that shows you sort of depth of engagement and depth of activity. And then as we work down in each one of these columns, it stays focused on that level. So the first column is assigned accounts. So then assigned accounts by status, like where in the sales cycle are they, basically? And then how, like, the total value of them just in that one big bucket of just assigned accounts. And then the ones that are being actively touched and worked on, well, what's happening within them? And then the final one is, how are people engaging with that? So is it calls? Is it emails? Are they downloading assets, et cetera? So this one really does tie the sales and marketing together in a really clean way that an individual contributor could then see, oh, the accounts are clicking on this PDF. Let me use that in my own sales cycle and maybe get some of these working accounts to engage with me.
I recently had a fascinating conversation with the CEO who openly admitted a love-hate relationship with Salesforce, that it is love in that it's so powerful, hate that, many organizations customize it to the nth degree, and it becomes just this over-engineered mess in many ways, especially if critical team members leave, if you will. My question of you is, are these dashboards generic and readily available out of the box in Salesforce, or do I need a PhD in astrophysics to create something that is usable, that helps me get my finger on the pulse of the business?
Great question. Fortunately, Salesforce does provide some out-of-the-box reports, and you can go in and customize the filters, if you will, on those reports to get the information you're looking for. If you're wanting to expand beyond that, you are going to need somebody with a little bit deeper level of Salesforce expertise. But those out-of-the-box reports, especially if you're a small startup, a Series A, Series B, those really can get you going, and they can get you the information that you're looking for in a readily available format.
Got it. Do we have another example?
No, that is actually my last example for today.
All right. So then let's share, let's talk about kind of a summary. What do you look for in a dashboard if you were advising a CRO, CMO, CEO, business unit leader? What should they looking for in their dashboard? And also a lot of examples you showed, whether it's coming from these packaged solutions, Jen, seems to be point solutions, right? So sales and Salesforce, marketing and marketing kind of rhythm and function. I'm assuming customer success similarly has one. How do I get a single view? How do I get one view of that customer lifecycle journey?
Fantastic question. Getting that single source and that view is really making sure that all of your tools are connected and defining what that central point is going to be. The easiest thing to do would be to export all of that data into something like a Snowflake or a Tableau, because there are not limitations on number of fields, number of reports to be merged, et cetera. It literally is just a big data repository that then you can build whatever type of view and dashboard you're looking for. So when we go into these companies and we're trying to help them create the dashboards, understanding where they're storing that data is number one. Number two, to your question about what a CEO, CMO, CRO, what they're looking for and how I can advise them, you need to be really specific about what your outcomes are. So if you're trying to drive revenue, what kind of revenue are you trying to drive? Like, what is the business outcome that you're after? And then use the data to create a report that shows how close or how far you are from hitting that. So being specific on your outcome will help you define the metrics that support that, and then create a report that then shows those metrics.
Beautiful. So I briefly mentioned the RevOps X-ray. Tell our audience a little about what it is and what you and your team do.
Yeah, the RevOps X-ray is a new thing that we've started doing, and it is a brief but in-depth look at your tech stack with mutual NDAs and sysadmin access. My team will go in and we'll look at your people, process, or your capabilities, your tech stack, and your processes, and identify any impediments and friction that are unnecessary. And then we'll come back with up to 5 or so recommendations of things you can immediately address. And those recommendations, if you have an internal team, they can address them. If you'd like assistance with them, we're more than happy to support. But it's really just identifying the things that are keeping your company or your organization from really hitting its stride and being able to accelerate its revenue growth.
And how long does an X-ray take?
About a week.
And how much does it cost?
Nothing.
Wow. So complimentary, no strings attached. You and your team in a week, as you said earlier, SEAL Team 6, get in, quickly look at what's happening, and come back with kind of up to 5 impediments to kind of reaching the top. Now, that is a little different than your RevOps assessment. Talk a little about the difference between the two.
Yeah, the RevOps assessment is definitely more in depth. It's about 30 to 45 days. The team will get in and really digest the connection points between your systems. There's several that we create for you. So like a holistic system architecture of how all your systems are connected together. We look at your documentation. We have interviews with the individual team members and functions that make up sales, marketing, and customer success to understand, is everyone clear on their roles? And so then from that, we actually come back with short, medium, and long-term recommendations of here's your lowest hanging fruit that you can address quickly. Here's some stuff in the next 6 to 12 months that you need to address. And here's items that 18 plus months that you really need to address. Otherwise, and like the ripple effects that if you don't address these things, that they can cause.
And from there, so what I love is from the X-ray or ideally the assessment, we can do both point solutions. So you go in and you work with them on their user journey, or you go in and work with integration, the dashboards, integration of these different systems to create kind of a single view of the business. You also recently launched kind of the fractional support. Talk a little about kind of Sarah and the team and where you can kind of extend, particularly really early stage. This is kind of pre-money or Series A that needs a kind of a fractional support function, if you will.
Yes, those early stage companies, they know they need operations, and most visionary leaders understand that operations as a whole is not a cost center, it's a force factor, but they don't necessarily have the capital today to invest in a dedicated ops person. So my team can support those early stage companies with exactly what they need. They need a HubSpot admin. They can't have one on staff, but they just need that support to help their sales function, or they need reports to be created within Salesforce or some small level of customization. My team can come in and focus on just that one thing to help the company scale in an efficient way and really be cost effective for those early stages when they can't have dedicated internal resources. And it helps lay that foundation as they grow and scale to have the appropriate connections between their systems so they're not having to refactor everything later.
The other scenario I like is almost like an interim gap. We recently, your team jumped in with this fractional support when someone left. And in that 30 that became 90 days that it took the client to find the replacement, you guys took over and ran that function as an interim step.
Yeah, the interim managed service really is helpful because when someone leaves for whatever reason, there's that knowledge gap, and finding someone to fill that can take time. And right now the job market's really tight. And so having expertise that you're going to bring back in-house is really helpful. So you're not slowing the business down, and it provides a level of comfort, if you will, to the executive team that we're still going to be able to hit our numbers because everything is still running in an efficient manner.
For our audience, if you joined us late, you missed a good one. This has been a second episode in our mini series, The Strategic Value of RevOps. In the previous episode, if you missed it, you can check it out certainly on demand, listen to it on demand in our podcast, or watch a previous version within the NOR Group live Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter accounts. This episode was focused on dashboards, something we deeply believe in as a management, as a leadership tool, something we continue to see a lot of organizations in various stages and their life cycle, as well as it's not just startups, enterprise level, different functions that are trying to do this and really grow more intelligently, more intentionally, really struggle in, and I've always said garbage in, garbage stays. If there's not a consistent data-driven culture, data-driven decision-making, data-driven problem-solving, data-driven communication, you're going to struggle in getting a holistic, believable, credible view of what's happening in the business. We're big believers of dashboards. Jen and our team, as well as our BizOps practice, really focuses on data hygiene, data visualization, data analysis, creating Snowflake and or Tableau environments for clients. So we hope this has been useful to you. As always, if there's anything we can do, norgroup.com is our website. Right after this session, I will be in our NOR group forum. So norgroup.com/forum. Come and let's talk more about it. We'll have examples. We'll have the examples that Jen showed in the RevOps group. So once you join the community on the left-hand side, there's a RevOps group. This is where we post unique content, resources, and events. Come join us right after this session for the next half an hour, and we'll make it really actionable in terms of things you need to think about in really implementing and maintaining credible dashboards from a RevOps standpoint in your marketing, sales, customer success functions in your organization. On behalf of Jen Cords, I'm David Noor. Thanks for joining us. Hope you'll join us again next Tuesday, noon Eastern, where we'll finish the mini-series with a focus on spend and a unique approach. And we've got some great nuggets to share on the spend side. We're live each Tuesday at noon Eastern, Intelligent Growth Live. Until next time, I'm David Noor. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Take care.